welcome to How to Fix It. Recently, a movie came out whose reviews left the internet shocked, as, based on the trailers, everyone assumed that the reviews would be the polar opposite of what they are. But I have no desire to see Sausage Party, so let's talk about Suicide Squad. So back in my review of Man of Steel, which was over 2 years ago, I pleaded with DC to bring my campy superheroes back. And they kind of listened. Unlike the dark and brooding, dull-colored monstrosity that was Man of Steel, Suicide Squad was meant to be a comedy and break up the darker, edgier streak that was set up by Man of Steel and Batman v Superman. It even had reshoots based on the reaction to Batman v Superman. Now, you know me, I'm not a comics guy. My biggest exposure to DC is through the DC animated universe, so having Harley Quinn in this movie was a big thing for me since she's the character I know the most about. I saw it the day it came out, and it was interesting. And nothing like Man of Steel, which is a positive in my book. But the question still stands. Was Rotten Tomatoes right, or is this another case of critics hating it and the audiences loving it? Let's find out. Okay, so I know that in the 2.5 years since I started this show, we've had the basic summary turn into a complex summary over time. But seeing as how this film is still in theaters, I'm going back to the roots and just giving you the basic premise of the movie. But throughout the video there are going to be spoilers, so don't watch this if you plan on seeing the movie. Let's begin. The movie is about Amanda Waller, played by Viola Davis, who works for the US government, coming up with the idea to use a special team of villains to use in the event that the next Superman isn't the giant Boy Scout that Kal-El was. The team, Task Force X, or the Suicide Squad as they call it, since getting the team out alive isn't exactly a priority, is made up of various bad guys, like Deadshot, played by Will Smith, a for-hire assassin who never misses a shot, and was arrested by Batman after Batman caught him when he was out with his daughter, and his daughter pleaded for him not to kill Batman. And Harley Quinn, or Dr. Harleen Quinzel, played by Margot Robbie, a former psychiatrist at Arkham Asylum who was corrupted by the Joker, played by Jared Leto, into becoming his sidekick. Other members of the team include El Diablo, played by Jay Hernandez, an ex-gangster/arsonist who can manipulate fire, who is sworn off using his powers after killing his family in a fit of rage, Captain Boomerang, played by Jai Courtney, an Australian thief who was caught by the Flash, Killer Croc, played by, and I'm sure I'm mispronouncing this, Adewale Akinoi Ajibaje, who in the comics was a former wrestler turned cannibalistic monster, and Slipknot, played by Adam Beach, a mercenary. The team is led by Colonel Flag.
Don't play dumb. You're not as good at it as I am.
Not that one. Although I do think that Edward Winter would have improved the movie. Flag, played by Joel Kinnaman, has a bodyguard in Katana, played by Karen Fukuhara, who fights with a sword that can trap souls inside of it, and is there to defend Flag from the squad. Waller gets the government to approve the squad by using the Enchantress, played by Cara Delevingne, a witch goddess who inhabits the body of June Moon, and showing them that she can control Enchantress and her magical powers by keeping her heart in a box keyed to explode if tampered with. She's planned to be part of the team, but unfortunately, since she's a friggin' god, she manages to escape and release her brother, another god, out of imprisonment, and they team up to create a device to exact revenge on humanity for imprisoning them. That's where the squad comes in. Waller has all the villains injected with a nanobomb into their neck that will blow up if they disobey either Waller or Flag, and they're sent into the city to deal with the Enchantress and her brother Incubus. While this is going on, the Joker has blackmailed one of the guards at Harley's prison into telling him where she is, and the Joker attempts to rescue Harley during the chaos. The rest of the movie centers around the squad trying to stop a literal god from destroying the world while working together, while trying not to destroy each other or get themselves killed if Waller or Flag has an itchy trigger finger. The acting was great. Will Smith gives his best performance since Men in Black 3. He gets a lot of funny lines, and while I think he can manage to do serious stuff, with Will Smith, he always works better if it's balanced with comedy, and this movie succeeds at that. Deadshot is also one of the more rounded out characters, giving his backstory, showing that while he is a killer, he loves his daughter and so isn't cold-blooded. Margot Robbie is great as Harley, even if her voice sounds more like Fran Drescher than Harley Quinn. Her scenes as Harleen Quinzel, while sparse and edited so weirdly that they didn't make much sense, are acted differently, showing a contrast between Dr. Quinzel and Harley. I was a little peeved that they only used her original costume during flashbacks and once during the scene where everyone got their gear together, but I admit it looks a little weird in live action, so I'm okay with giving her a costume more similar to her recent comic appearances. I've said that I like Cara Delevingne's acting before, and she does great. Admittedly, the way she flips so quickly from the scared June Moon who begs Flag to kill Enchantress if it was ever down to it, straight into the undeniably evil and menacing Enchantress is pretty scary. I admit I found her scarier than the Joker. El Diablo has the best story arc since he's the only character not in it for something. He just wants redemption. He starts out refusing to use his powers, but by the end he's calling the squad his family, and his final act in the movie, giving his life to take out Incubus to save the others, was the most emotionally charged moment in the movie, and gutted me almost as much as Clara Oswald's death gutted me in this past season of Doctor Who. Amanda Waller is exactly how she was in the DC animated universe, so she was perfect. Viola Davis does great, and even if I hate Waller from a personal perspective, since she does whatever it takes, regardless of morality, to achieve her goals, she's a complex character, and I appreciate that she's given the weight that she deserves in this movie, being the driving force behind everything. Killer Croc, when he got lines, was good, and Captain Boomerang was funny as well. They just didn't get as much to do as the others. Katana was an interesting character and not developed nearly enough, so I hope there's a sequel because there's a lot to do with her. I think Flag was also good, though he was kind of a stock gun-toting army character, and really only stood out during the parts that expanded on the relationship between him and June Moon. There was also a lot of funny in the movie. My theater kept cracking up when the jokes were told, and for the most part, all of them hit, and the music in the movie was pretty good. The movie also made good use out of the guest stars, showing the Flash apprehending Boomerang, and having Batman appear apprehending Deadshot and saving Harley, and then showing up at the end to pull a Nick Fury and jumpstart the Justice League. Overall, the movie was pretty good in acting and writing, at least in terms of jokes. We'll be right back. And we're back. The movie was very uneven in tone, and it bounced all over the place. The editing was weird, and at least in my opinion, it felt like one of those internet videos made by someone who doesn't understand pacing. The writing for the actual story was also really weak. No one has any motivation, really, and those who do have crappy motivation at best. The movie spends a lot of time setting up Deadshot and Harley Quinn and Enchantress, but basically ignores everyone else. I mean, we learn nothing about Killer Croc, and he really only gets 2 good lines in the entire movie. I didn't care for Captain Boomerang much, but that might be my own bias, since in the comics he killed Tim Drake's father. We're supposed to care about Flag and June's relationship, but we know nothing about why he loves her, so I didn't care about their relationship at all. We get a very limited backstory for Katana, and then there's friggin' Slipknot, who exists solely to die in a scene to keep the squad in line so they don't escape. It's so stupid. The movie is so top-heavy with building backstories and such that the actual story feels rushed. It's like, in the Avengers, they set up character backstories in the earlier films so that the movie was only really setting up character background for Hawkeye. Admittedly, Hawkeye spends most of the film brainwashed, but at least the story in the movie was the story in the movie, instead of backstory that could have been given in separate movies. Another problem is that there's barely anything everything with the Joker. With all the stuff Jared Leto did to prepare, you'd think he had more of a purpose in the movie than to aid in helping Harley escape so she can rejoin the team 3 minutes later. I mean, he was all over the promotional material and he's barely in the movie. I feel like they could have left him out and the movie wouldn't be any different. In fact, it would probably benefit from that. I'm not saying that the movie necessarily needed more Joker, but they either needed to give him more purpose or take him out completely because as it is, he's extraneous and every time he shows up, the plot I care about is being halted for his stupid antics. There are also a lot of unresolved plot threads, like what happened to Ike Barinholtz's character, who had been threatened into helping the Joker early on, and Harley hints at some retaliation from the Joker, but we get nothing. I actually cared about what the Joker was going to do to him, and we got squat. Also, there is a lot of stupid. For one thing, why didn't Waller destroy the Heart the moment that Enchantress went rogue? To have leverage over her if they stop her evil plan? That's a pretty stupid contingency plan if you don't immediately destroy the source of an evil pan-dimensional god's power when she goes rogue. Why do you think Batman has those boxes with the weaknesses of the entire Justice League? Why did you put those bombs into their necks? To stop them from going rogue. You had the Heart and then lost it because you are an idiot. I know that means the entire movie wouldn't have happened, but if I can solve the main issue of the movie in 2 seconds, it's not a very good plot then, is it? That brings me to my next point. Why was the Enchantress given the opportunity to jumpstart the movie at all? She's under guard by Flag and she's just allowed to transform at will? And why was her brother's artifact just sitting on a shelf? Shouldn't that have been in a special explodey box too? It's just so stupid. Unless Waller orchestrated that to make the government approve her task force. A giant attack by a god would be a good way to ensure that her task force is sent in and used. And it is in line with Waller's dishonest gray morality. Though I can't imagine that was intentional. It's also kind of unrealistic that a team to combat metahumans is made up of a bunch of normal people and like 2 metahumans. El Diablo and Killer Croc are the only metahumans, and even Killer Croc is pushing it. I mean, Enchantress is a metahuman, but did they really expect to keep her in line for an extended period of time? I mean, I get bringing in Deadshot, since at least with being a good shot, he has a better than average ability. But what do Boomerang Guy and Clown Girl bring to the table? And this is coming from someone who likes Harley Quinn. I just can't see what's going to stop an evil Superman from ripping her in half. Speaking of which, how did a normal bomb take out an ancient pan-dimensional god? The climax of the movie has this bomb that they never explicitly stated was magic or anything, that can apparently destroy a god when guns were useless. Then again, Captain Kirk beat a god with a rock, so maybe gods can only be destroyed in really weird ways. A minor problem I have is that the Joker gets to live and El Diablo dies. So the Joker goes down in a chopper crash and he shows up alive at the end, but El Diablo, who has similar powers to the Enchantress and Incubus, just dies at the end? Not fair, man. First of all, I'd fix the top heaviness. I know this isn't quite feasible, but I'd have set it up sort of like the Avengers. Like instead of doing Suicide Squad, have the Batman movie introduce Joker, Harley, and Killer Croc, the Flash movie introduce Captain Boomerang, and let this movie introduce everyone else. If they did it this way, Killer Croc might actually have a backstory. I'd also cool it with the erratic editing. It's one thing to do rapid movie trailer editing, and another to have 90s reality show editing. I also would have made clear everyone's motivations, based on their characters. I mean, aside from the fear of death, what's keeping everyone fighting this war they didn't start? And I would have taken out Slipknot completely, because they could have demonstrated the neck bomb in any way, and didn't have to add in a character whose sole purpose is dying to prove lethality when his comics counterpart actually has purpose on the team. I also would have explained a way to make Amanda Waller not an idiot for leaving out a super important vessel holding an unstoppable god in a place that it could be easily taken by another unstoppable god. If they were married to Enchantress being the villain, simply give us a little scene after the Enchantress sneaks into Waller's room while she's asleep and unleashes her brother, where Waller smiles after Enchantress leaves. Not only does it fit right in with Waller's character based on her comics and DC Animated Universe counterparts, it also makes her out to be smart instead of seeming like an idiot for negligence. Plus, we gotta get some explanation for that bomb. Was it magical? Why did it take destroying her heart to destroy Enchantress, but her brother went out the same way that Boris and Natasha tried to get rid of Bullwinkle with? I probably would have canned the Joker completely or killed him off completely, because honestly, he served his purpose, so now he can go wait until they make a live-action Batman Beyond movie. Plus, I'd have added in a little scene at the end to give us some sequel bait for El Diablo, like doing a slow pan over the cell he was in during the beginning, and having a little flame burst out for a second, sort of like the torpedo tube at the end of Star Trek II that hinted at Spock's return. And I would have covered the hanging plot threads that seemed like sequel bait, but I'm not sure what the purpose of waiting until the sequel to resolve them are, so I'd resolve them here. And that was Suicide Squad. Was it good? It was better than Man of Steel, but that's not saying much. It definitely could have been better. Admittedly, it wasn't a disservice to Harley Quinn, this being her first live-action film appearance, and Margot Robbie was perfect. Even Paul Dini, who created Harley, thought so. I like the movie, and of what I've seen of the DC Extended Universe so far, it's by far the best. Though I'm hoping that Wonder Woman will usurp it. Jared Leto hyped this stuff up way too much, and I didn't go in very enthused about the Joker, and I left even less so. Also, they need to give Deadshot his own movie. Will Smith has been out of the game for a bit, and Deadshot is the perfect character to bring Will Smith back to where he was during Men in Black. Go see it for yourself and make your own decision, but I thought it was good, if a little weak in some areas. Anyway, that's all the time we have for today. If you'd like to see more of How to Fix It, you can hit that subscribe button. And if you have any comments or complaints about the video, you can put those in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, share it with your friends and share it around the internet. And maybe consider supporting the show on Patreon. See you next time.